Welcome to Between the Rounds. I'm your host, Sarah C. Now, if you've ever stepped inside a boxing ring or a cage, you know this sport isn't just about physical conditioning. It's about the hard work, technical skills, and a refusal to never give up. Now, today's guest embodies every single one of those things, completely raw and unfiltered. She's a Liverpool legend, a former Cage Warriors champion, a UFC fan favourite who's lit up arenas from London to Las Vegas. And now she's come full circle back to her pure boxing roots with a 10-fight deal under Matchroom Boxing. And she's already given us 4 exceptionally exciting fights. We're talking about Meatball and Molly McCann. And this episode is going to give you real talk on grit, recovery, and leaving the sport with zero regrets. Let's get into it. Here's Molly McCann. Molly, thank you so much for joining me on Between the Rounds.
I wish it sounded like you. Do you know, when I've heard your stuff, I think your voice was made for audio books. Do you know, I just think that your accent and just the tone of your voice, before I knew who you was, well, I'd obviously heard of you, but I didn't put the voice to the face. And then when I put it together, I thought, she should definitely do this.
I love that. Oh, thank you. First question for you. Before the O2, before the UFC, and even kind of before you came full circle back to boxing, who was little Molly McCann and what did she actually want the first time she put on a pair of gloves?
So mad. Little Molly McCann actually lived 2 roads away from where she lives now.
No way.
In a place called Norris Green, right next to the little primary school that I went to for a little while. And there was no female boxing. We're talking 2002. And I was watching the Olympic Games. And at the time, I think Great Britain only took 1 representative, and that was Amir Khan. And I remember watching just a 17-year-old lad fighting, and I thought, I want to do that. Obviously, no female representation, even notion of females really being able to do it. Just down the road, there was a boxing gym next to my local church where I go called Saint's ABC. And I turned up with my cousin. My cousin James was going, go on, I'll take you, I'll come with you. And I knocked on the door. I was like, can I come in? Just a 12-year-old little girl. No girls here, love. So it was like a nursery that was turned into a gym. And I just used to watch my cousin through the window and just imitate and try and emulate what he was doing. The whole summer goes past, the head coach goes, okay, you can come in. So I've gone in, he's put on these gloves, and he's like, in the ring, have a move round with him. And his name was Chris, and I had a move round, and Sarah, you know how it goes. When boxing touches your life and you're meant for it, nothing else matters, you just know. And I just knew this is what I'm meant to do. It didn't last for long though, to be honest. I fell in love with football, and I was trying to, like, if I couldn't compete, what was the point of training at the time? So I was like in between football and boxing, a little bit like Katie, to be honest. I was like, I just wanted to compete. Yeah. And then when I was 16 at college, I found the Golden Gloves gym. And a great coach, Kevin Smith, and he took to me and I took to him, and he was like, you're going to be my $1 million baby. And that's how it was written, really. When I had the coach that said, come on, I'll get you your card and you can start boxing. I was like, and I was so much better at that than anything else in my life, really, love. But I've always just had this affinity to boxing where it just feels like home. I think it was the first real safe, solid support network I had with males in my life that kind of didn't let you down. Do you know what I mean? People that were there, they believed in me and they showed me that, and they gave me discipline. I just loved it.
And isn't it amazing? All you need is one person to truly believe in you to make it something.
Yeah, and women, like, I know the times have changed, but back then, girls in sport, it was a bit of a faux pas. It was like, I'll go on, we'll do it just so that they've got something to do. But Kevin was with me every day, and his style of boxing was like Cuban style. It was counter-check hooks, and I think in my last fight, you probably seen a little bit more of that come alive in me, and I've kind of like found my way back to it. Like, I remember going into his gym and he'd been away at like the Tri-Nations or the Four Nations, I forget what the tournament's called in boxing. But this was a time like in 2006 with a camcorder, and he's come back and he's seen Pete Taylor training with Katie Taylor, and he recorded it for me and he brought it back, and it was like, it opened up at the side for you to view it. And he went, look, this girl's doing it, try and be like this girl. And at that time, I was like, sure, I know who that is. Do you know what I mean? But that one man changed it for me.
And then you went on to win the ABA title in 2009. But then obviously, like you mentioned back then, there was no Olympic pathway for your particular weight class, right? And there was no real pro market for women. And you made that tough decision to move to MMA. What would you say actually prepared you for kind of that brutal demand of the elite combat sport in general?
So in that year when I won, I think Katie managed to get the Olympics to bring in 3 weight categories, and Natasha Jonas is the golden girl, do you know what I mean? Much better boxer than what I was at the time, and I knew either weight, the low 50s or the 60s, I could never compete with. So I went to university and thought that was it for me. A lot of people don't know that I've got a degree. You know what I mean? I've got a degree in sport recreation and physical education and coaching. Whilst at university, I was in and out of like partying, living the dream, like a life I hadn't really had. And I just kind of fell into MMA by accident through drinking. One of the doormen basically said, you go home, you're too drunk, go and watch this fight, get down the gym. And I watched Ronda Rousey fight. And that was kind of, you know yourself, sometimes you watch these moments in sport and you so, like, it just changes your perception of what you think you can do. And I just thought, I'm going to have a go at this. But let me tell you, I would walk around 60, 61 kilo and get down to 56 in like a week in boxing. And then when I went to MMA, I had been drinking, I had been eating, I was working at Subway, so I was living on my own, drinking at uni and then eating footlong subs with crisps and cookies and drinking full fat Coke. And I went up to 69 kilos, Sarah. So when I've got into the MMA, I had a lot to do. But where MMA was quite new and where I'd learned a lot from boxing and the discipline that you have, no one had to tell me what to do. I knew I get up, I'm going to run, then I'm going to train, then I'm going to lift weights. I was very fortunate that boxing had taught me them fundamental pillars. Was I expecting MMA to be what it was? Absolutely not. That took me to places I never, little Molly never dreamed she could go. Her body also felt that. Women at that level were few and far between. The girls at that level were so good because you had to be, because you was training with men every day. So I only really trained with men, so that you'll know the body and like in boxing, it's a lot more like internal damage. I feel it's like shots over time. Like you get headaches after sparring and you're just aching. Whereas MMA, it's a lot more on the surface level. It's a lot more like scrapes, cuts, accidental clash of heads, or you kick someone's elbow, or you've gone knee on knee. So it's not that much internalized. But I mean, it's given me a good base for boxing. Don't get me wrong, but it was also the reason I had to step away from the sport.
Yeah, when you obviously gave MMA everything through that entire experience. And, you know, like you mentioned, the physically taxing on your body from broken legs, broken ribs, everything.
Broken
As you
eye
made that
socket.
transition, then, Jesus.
Yeah. I did this Google Meatball Molly broken eye socket and you'll be like, what was she playing at? I had no business there.
You come back from it all, right? Like, can you imagine, like, in those moments, like, were there moments where you're like, I've got to quit this, before you actually made the decision?
Yeah, I think quite a lot of the losses that I faced was to say my level of striking was here. If I was fighting someone whose knowledge of jiu-jitsu, they had trained as long as I had been striking. You've seen it with famous MMA fighters from Ireland. Grappling beats striking 90% of the time if they know more of it. And the people that I lost to, Sarah, post-fight always tested positive. I mean, there was a few who obviously didn't and they were just better than me. But the drug testing was so much in the UFC. But some parts of the areas is quite hard to get to in the world and they would sometimes just manage your way past it. I was always outsized and outmaneuvered in them positions, and I think 12 weeks of your life training with men 3 to 4 times a day, giving your all to be held down in them positions or really hurt. Like I dislocated my elbow twice, my shoulder 3 times, bulging discs in my back, broken legs, like you say. And it's when you lose and it's that Sunday morning, you just sat there scratching your head going, the world doesn't see that pain and the world doesn't see how much you have to take online. And there was a point in my life where the mental torture of online trolling was like harder to deal with than the physical side. And we're talking 2022, 23 when 2 spinning elbows off to MSG. The world was my oyster, and me and Paddy was at this real mad point where we were just everywhere, just 2 kids living the dream, but no one teaches you how to take that level of like
Well, the
humility,
psychological. Yeah.
humbling, people just being horrible for the sake of it. And when you come from humble beginnings and you've earned your right to be there, sometimes it's hard to rationalise with the stuff online. And I do feel like the world is much more equipped to deal with it now. But back then, I sure as hell wasn't. Do you know what I mean? And when I broke my leg 2 years ago, it took me 5 or 6 months to get back in there. And my body just couldn't demand it. Couldn't keep up to the demands, and it was the most heartbreaking but freeing thing I've ever had. It was like the saddest thing to say goodbye, because I had me corner team and I had Paddy in the crowd crying, and we're these kids off this council estate by ours who've managed to do unbelievable things with where we're from, with the environment that we was produced in. And but I was so free, Sarah, and I didn't think I was gonna box. Like, it had been thrown at me, you're gonna box, you're gonna box, you're gonna box. But I left and I took my girlfriend on holiday. I was like, that's it, that's it. And my manager, Graham Boylan, rang me up, and we was in Florence. We was having some gelato, buying crucifixes from this shop. I was like, oh, I want a new necklace. And he just rings me up, he goes, "Well, you're not done yet." I went, "Graham, I am." He said, "Love, March, come July, you'll have itchy knuckles." He said, let's go and be who you was born to be." We had a couple of offers from a few different people and a few different sports as well, bad sports. But
Okay.
I always had that relationship with Eddie Hearn. You know what I mean? I always say it, and I don't know if it does his head in, but it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't know.
I was going to ask you that because I did watch interview with you saying that. I guess what was the choice around Eddie at that point? Because, yeah, true. It is better the devil you do know, but underlying all of that, there's a good relationship between both of you, and you can see that.
Yeah, I mean, for about 10, 11 years, I've been at most Matchroom shows. Everyone from Liverpool or any time Katie's fought, and I've travelled to go and watch. And I'll always support a lot. Do you know what I mean? When I say devil, I kind of mean like the boxing world as a whole, because it can get dark and it can get nasty. And I just believe him, or I've believed what he said he was going to come through with. And to like no disappointment, he kind of really has given me everything I've kind of asked for in terms of competition and places to fight and shows and cards to be on. I mean, I'm 5 fights in. I only asked for 5 things. And I'm 4. I've ticked 4 of them off. So he knows the relationship that I've got with the fans. He knows I'm a fighter's fighter. And I think he knew it was a big risk on his part. Do you know, the MMA world, she's too old, she's past it, she's this, that, and the other. And he's took a gamble, and I think it's paying off for the both of us. But I can't really complain. Obviously, I'll always find something to complain about, as most fighters will, but I'm happy for now.
Well, I did want to ask you a little bit on, because I was at the Zuffa Boxing fight night on Sunday night, and I went there with Dana and asked directly, I was at the press event after the fight night, and I asked him about Zuffa Boxing and women, and he said that they were looking at a couple of fighters. Obviously, you've spent years inside TKO. Do you think Zuffa will actually invest long term in women's boxing? And what's your general thoughts on their positioning there?
Do you know, before we came to Eddie and we finalised, like, you get like is it called garden leave? So in MMA, when you retire for a year, you're out. That's it. You can't go anywhere. And my manager Graham said to Dana and Hunter Campbell, look, Molly's body's past it, but she can box. Like, is it okay if she boxes? Would you even be interested in it? And I think it was so new at the time, they didn't know what was going to happen. So they was like, let her go and like enjoy yourself, let her go and do what she needs to do. And then all of the madness happened with Conor Ben and all of that stuff. And I was just like, what is going on with this? Like, what's happening here? And it's all up in the air. I do think Dana will invest in women. I know he doesn't want crossovers. I know he would probably like the sport to remain pure and not have like a big, a bit like Misfits or like the whole Jake Paul thing. I think they're just really trying to steer away from that and find themselves. I can see it happening. I can see it happening.
Well, I think to that point, I just yesterday came out with a piece around obviously the breaking news this morning of Matchroom and MVP coming together for a strategic alliance and whatever that actually means, which we'll get to in a second. I do want to touch a little bit on Turkey and Riyadh season, and obviously largely leaving female fighters off. Whatever about being in Riyadh and being in Saudi itself, but when you look beyond that Riyadh season and the expansion of that fight series, what's your take on Saudi's current oversight of women's boxing when you're thinking outside of the country itself?
It's a letdown, isn't it? It's a letdown not to see the equality across the board. I do know when they had PFL, they had women on the card. Clarissa Shields was there. So it's like they can do it. My thing is, have they picked the right female fight to go out there to change the kind of stereotype about women's fighting? Is there a market for it? If they're often about change and they want to be progressive, I think it's a conversation that needs to be had. It's a tough one. I don't know if who I am and what I represent is something that would be welcome there. It might be. And if so, I'd love to have a conversation on maybe changing that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just find it really heartbreaking because I think we've seen this huge growth in the men's side of the sport. And don't get me wrong, I think what Jake Paul has done has been fantastic. But for me, I think you quickly reach a cap. Whereas I think what Eddie was doing with Matchroom Boxing with Katie and obviously the legacy that you brought into it as well. Like, I think you have to cross pollinate both audiences, right? You need the men's audience interested in the sport to grow it. And I think by creating this complete silo of women's boxing, I grow concerned about it. And I think the only way to get past that, because Saudi are putting so much money into the sport, something's got to convert here, because it's going to be continue being a afterthought, or we'll just keep that at like a certain level, just keep ourselves involved.
Yeah, I think it's important to have the equality over across all the board. I've fought like in the Emirates before in MMA. I've fought out there and I was treated probably better than with most other places I've ever been treated when I was out there. I know it's there and I know they'll accept it. I just don't know. I don't know what the crutch is. I don't know like why we're not pushing on, and I can completely understand your reason and what you're saying. And it's like when you watch an international amateur show, there's just as many women, just as many men, and people watch both. And the level is so high. Maybe at the minute, in their view, the level in their eyes isn't what they want. I don't know. But I will
I
be the one to ask the question. Yeah, I'm sure I will be the one who will ask the fucking question.
Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of your trajectory and kind of what's next for you. And I know you've talked about that living room space. You've got 5 belts to complete that living room display. When we look at the roster across kind of both the super bantam and potentially even the bantamweight for you, right? You've got this 10-fight deal with Matchroom. When you look at kind of the competitors within that space, where do you see yourself as you hunt for that British, European, and even world title in the next 3 to 4 fights?
Oh, this next fight's at 120. And then before Christmas, I've been told I'll be fighting at bantamweight. In the UFC, I used to fight at 116, so I've been fighting at 122 just because of how consistent the fights have had to be. And I think you can see I'm growing into my boxing body, understanding it. I do think 122 is a bit heavy. I think sometimes when you watch I think if I was boxing at my natural weight, I could maybe have got a few more fighters out of there. But when I look at the landscape, if I'm given the 122 or the 118 British, it would mean I'd have to fight Ticey Gallagher next. And I'm sure she'd be open to that, and I'd be open to that. I know there isn't a British at 118. So whoever, if Matchroom decide me to go down that route, I'm there. But if my MMA record tells you anything, I've never turned down a fight. Doesn't matter what style it is. And it's the same coming over to boxing, Sarah. There isn't a queue out the door of people wanting to fight me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm getting these bogus journey women who are just coming to give me the rounds. Like, everyone's coming to try and beat me. But I do think I've been given a step up every fight for me to grow with. And I think the last fight for me was like, right, I now believe in what I can do now that I know the answers. So it was like I had a new stance. My automatic responses to defend and countering were completely different. And like I had watched what you had said about my first fight and then my second fight, and then the props and the kudos you gave me for the last one. I was like, yes, like, and I think I messaged you, didn't I? Like, yes, like I'm getting there and I understand what I'm capable of and I believe what I'm capable of now. So now I know I can box and fight. It's like a whole new level for me to be able to move forward. I do think I needed this last 8 rounds to get there. From going from a 5-minute endurance round to 2s, it's a big change, especially when you're 35 and 36. You know.
No, no.
But the lucky thing for me is where I didn't get that much trauma to the brain in MMA. Because when you spar and things, you're not going ham on the head, and in boxing, I know you're not going ham, but you have to train how you fight sometimes, and sometimes it's a little bit tough. But I'm really not lying, but I feel like I'm a bit like Benjamin Button. I feel like my body clock's got going back, and I feel like my body's able to adapt, and it's adapting, and I needed this 8 rounds. Matchroom basically says if you're asking to be bumped up and you want 10 rounds, we can't say which belt's coming. It's like whatever's ready available is what you're gonna get. So don't tell us you're ready if you're not ready. And I was just like, we're ready. So this will be my last little feather in the cap, just to be like, you can definitely bet your house on me. I know what I'm fucking doing. And then before Christmas, there's not many who could say in 6 fights will be fighting for the title after coming from a different sport and being honest to the game of boxing, like not taking shy fights, really, like not, I don't
These
know,
journey women,
not
you're not.
selling out, like just doing it properly, what the sport deserves. And if my story can be every time I got knocked down, I fucking got back up, and I can show people you can do whatever you want as long as you work hard. It doesn't matter what people say to you, and you can't do this, you're too old for that, you're not the right gender, you're blah blah blah. And I fucking suck on that. Watch. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you've been an absolute joy to watch, even just as you're kind of growing back into the sport of boxing. And like that's what I mean about just seeing the transition and the growth between every single one of your fights. It's you're not only an entertaining fighter, you're fucking skillful. And just seeing those minor adjustments that you're making every single time, it's an absolute joy to watch, Molly. Like it really is. And I'm so excited for like what the next 5 or 6 fights look like for you as well. Can you talk me through, there's one specific piece that you talked about, learning not to clean up after shots, right? So for me and some of my listeners who don't follow MMA as much, right? How hard was it to stop lingering in range when judges punish you for it in boxing itself? And can you explain what that actually means?
Yeah, so in MMA, I fought from 126 to 116. And when I fought at 126, the girls were like 5'9". One girl had 12-inch reaches on her arms. So, and I'm 5 foot, claim 5'4", but I'm 5'3.5", with a 52 or 62-inch reach. No, 52-inch reach. I had the smallest range in the UFC history, right? And for me to win, I couldn't be at the edge of kicks, because a jab is one range and a kick is a different range. So I was in on that chest, pushing you to that cage and making you want to give up, or I was completely out. In boxing, you can be just at the edge and you can be out of the way, but I didn't. I was either in or I was out still. And there's a famous saying for the listeners, it might be a bit vulgar, so I'm sorry, but you've got to wipe your ass when you sit on the toilet. And someone said that to me, and the penny just dropped. It's like, clean up after yourself. So I'd get into range, land me shot, but then be there to be hit. And what in my last fight, I thought, this girl I won't be able to outpunch her and be able to stay in there for that long yet at that time, because I didn't have the experience of rounds under my belt for that long. She'd done a few 10-round fights. I knew she was going to be more experienced there. So I thought, how do I win? So it was the first and the third. So hit one, move out the way, they throw, you go in on 3. And I'm a left-handed orthodox. So when I wasn't allowed in the gym, when I was just allowed in, they didn't ask me what hands I wrote with, they just said copy them. And there was no southpaws in the gym. So it's only like, I've always switch hit in MMA because you can afford to with takedowns and kicks. But that fight, I really found me flow at certain points. And I'd move and I'd be out the way. But also in MMA, Sarah, you can hit and hope on something will land. You can throw a kick and you've got the whole body to land with. And when you're throwing a shot, you're throwing everything into most of them because it's a 4-ounce glove and it's shin on shin. But in boxing, what I realised is not every shot's to kill. And I think that was the first fight where I popped on one, moved on two, and then sunk them in on three. And it was just rinse, repeat. And in MMA, there's so many movement patterns from all the different Olympic disciplines. I just really honed in how I used to think in MMA and brought it to boxing. And what I do is I think, right, it's really important that I draw the shot with my head movement and then counter it with my hands and then move again. So I'm not there to be hit. So I'd come home and I'd just be watching Andre Ward. I watched so much last fight camp. Roy Jones Jr. I watched so much. I watched so much of Katie and so much of like Gatti. And I was just trying to draw where I felt comfortable and can I use that movement pattern? And then I'd write it down. And I've like a flow chart. It's like, so if I write it down and I drill it and I drill it and I drill it, I'll find the artistry and the poetry within that. So I make sure I go into training half an hour early. I do my mobility because I'm an old woman. And then I get in that mirror and I practice. And then my coaches are brilliant. Like when people see my performance there, it's like you need big props to them, that corner team, because they know how to manage my mind. I get overwhelmed with all of my input and all of the knowledge, and what they're able to do is they can put it in little boxes, so I'm able to like draw from that when I need it, and that when I need it, and that when I need it. Practice makes perfect, and we'll never get perfect, but we'll get as close as we can. And that is all it is. And a famous Irish fighter said, was like, I'm not talented, I'm obsessed. And that's all it is. It's a positive obsession. I went sober last year. Like, I thought, if I'm doing this, I need to give up alcohol. I need to give up all these vices that deter me from being the best me that I need to be. I don't blow up in between camps. I stay low, I stay in the gym. And it's my coach who says, right, you need to go away for a week. You're going to burn your mind out. You haven't stopped. He knows me better than I know myself. And I just feel so grateful. People don't get a second shot at a career. And I feel like this is my third or fourth. Because I had football, I had amateur boxing, I had MMA, but said I wouldn't be this person, I'm ready for this now. If I hadn't gone through them embarrassing moments, them humbling moments, them fucking courageous moments, them moments I've had to dig into the trenches and fight 5 minutes with a shattered orbital bone or broken metacarpals and still fighting on, or broke my leg in 3 places in the first minute of a 15-round fight and got through it. Like, all of that has taught me for this. And that's why, like, when I say I do believe I can be a world champion, it's because I know that I can, because all it is hard work and switching on and just staying switched on. And all, like, what I've realised is mental fatigue. Like, when you watch, like, the Ukrainian fighters and a lot of Usyk and a lot of Lomachenko, it's like when they're tired and they're doing rounds, they're then doing, like, rounds to keep the cognitive sharp and to keep that going. And I'm bringing that and aligning that and just being comfortable, not to be rigid and just going with the flow. Training, you don't always have to be in your own head, and I think MMA done that to me. But when I come into the boxing gym, it's just home, it's my church, it's my sanctuary. I'm just like, well, thank God I'm here.
Yeah. Would you say there's elements of, like, you find boxing obviously easier than MMA from a physical standpoint? And the reason I ask that, of like, because as you're saying, you're trying to, like, you're developing into kind of the 10 rounder to get to that world championship level. Obviously your endurance and what you've gone through with, like, the longer rounds at MMA. And then when you think about kind of the bursts within the 2-minute rounds, when you're breaking that down from, like, what my attacking sequence is versus then, getting a breather within that 2-minute round.
Yeah.
Do you generally find that easier, or, like, what's kind of the mental load that you're still carrying within that transition?
I think it's harder. I think boxing, I think the camps in MMA, your muscles were more fatigued in terms of that grappling resistance training upon lifting and having to be explosive. That destroys the central nervous system. Like, wow. And you'd have to go an hour MMA striking, an hour MMA grappling, and then like an hour and a half strength and conditioning. And it was just, it is not for the weak. Like when you get to the UFC, or mustard, whether you win in there or not, just to get there's next level, you have to be fitter in boxing. And like, I've always been a good runner, but like my whole running regime up the level. I feel like a semi-professional runner who punches. But that's how it was at the beginning. And then
Yeah.
this year, it's turned more into me sprinter can't not, I wouldn't say I'm still on the track and on the assault bike, but it's more on the heavy bag. It's more how we changed it up is me head coach Danny puts the body pad on and then bam, me second in command, he'll just have the mitts on and I'll go box, 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 box. Now Danny's walking me down, a big 100-kilo fella. I've got to hit it, box, box, box. And that was the biggest thing for me to realise and to train a little bit different and to just be smarter. But when you come from a sport where you must finish, it was a bit of a fuckery for my brain to be like, it's okay not to go and try and finish them, and it's okay to play chess. I just don't like to fight like that, but I'm very aware, like I said in my last fight, I'm going to prove on the biggest stage under the most pressure I can box. I'm not going to go in there. Obviously, if the finish presents itself, but my job is to box and show people what I can do and finally gain the respect of the community, which I think I'm nearly there. Like, a lot of people got a pat on the back off.
Yeah. And I think there's a beauty in the boxing in terms of like more of the chess playing and the psychological game playing that can go on while you're trying to, obviously try and get a KO if it's there. But I think that's what's the real beauty behind it, because you're finding your dance partner, and then it's like, who's psychologically sharper here and is actually planting traps on me.
What I didn't realise, it's so much easier to fight, so much harder to box. And when you listen to Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor about the first two, Katie said the last fight was the hardest one because she couldn't switch off and she had to box. But the other two, even though she went to the trenches, it's easier to fight because it's just this.
Yep.
But then when you have to box, it's like that. It's both. So you're just double tired. Do you know what I mean? For me, I'm really enjoying the boxing side, and it's mad because today and tomorrow I brought my last opponent, Ashley Johnson, down for rounds. So we just had rounds today, and I was like, do you know what I mean? And I was like, sometimes you forget it is so fucking hard to box. I've got a hammock in my back garden, and I've just been swinging on it for the last 3 hours, and my partner Fran's like, I'm so sorry. Are you okay, Molly? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah. And you forget how truly hard this life is. It's just because the last fight felt so easy. It wasn't easy. I was physically exhausted, but it was so positive. And then when you come back to training, it's like day one again, and you're like, oh my God, I forgot how hard it is to get. Like,
Well,
I'm
you're riding
stronger.
Yeah, you're also riding the adrenaline when it's fight time as well, and then when you're in with
Yeah.
tough sparring, Jesus Christ, it does. Yeah, it takes a toll on you mentally as well. Let's talk about Croke Park September, because I want to go there, and it's going to be fucking epic.
Have you got tickets? You going?
Not yet. What I'm trying to do is, well, two things. I'm going to try the media angle with Between the Rounds, because I was able, like, Zuffa were very good with like giving me a media credential, even though my following I'm only building. That's one option. And then the second option, because my dad did really want to come with me. They do still have, obviously, the pitch level tickets, which I'm down for. I've done the ringside of Katie a few times, and when you're just too far back, you're almost like looking up to try and get the screen, and you're too far back to actually see between the ropes. And so that's kind of where I've held off for a hot second. But yes, I'm not going to miss it, because I feel like I've been on this entire journey alongside Katie's whole professional career, that I'm like, I'm not going to miss this moment.
And I can imagine the amateur days. But if anyone from Matchroom is listening, Zuffa give us something. So I think he's better than Zuffa. So come on, guys. Come on. But Croke, I'm not sure if you've seen in my last fight. I knew, like, shoot your shot, Meatball, because what's the worst that can happen? And I just remember saying, like, I knew it was the 5th or the 12th then in April. I knew it was going to be one of them days if it was secured. So I thought I'd just ask Eddie. I said, Eddie, can I fight on that card? And he said, yeah. And I jumped up in the air. Like, it was, to me, to have that, like, family lineage, to have the first one of us as in female fighters who's done it, changed the game. I didn't give a fuck if I was first on. I don't know where I am in the card. I couldn't give a fuck, but I am just going there and I will be there. And like I've said, if something happened to me that night and I could never box again, I've completed everything in my checklist to be fulfilled. I know what Croke Park means to Ireland. I know the history surrounding it. I know the love and the care of what that fight card means to the Irish people. Like, get it. And every detail of my kit, of my walkout, of the team. I've asked the Irish cut man photographers to come and be involved, so everyone gets their moment, to have that moment there. Wait till you see my walkout. Like before, my last one was called Wait Till You See This one. And who I've got.
I love that you think of every single detail, because actually I didn't even think about asking you about your kit, and like you put so much thought into those. I'm excited to hear. Well, don't tell me anything about September because it'll be a nice reveal, but you do put a lot of thought and consideration into every single aspect of fight night.
Attention to details a must. I remember being a kid, I'd have to go and work jobs, night shifts at Subway, just to earn enough money to go and watch an amateur show. And I know how hard it is just even to go to the amateurs. And then I think, as a pro, your people are shelling out 200-300 quid or euro. Then Scousers and Irish are the same, so the girls are going to go and get the hair done, the makeup, the dress, the shoes, the bag. Then it's the lads, all the ale, the rest that comes with that. And then it's all about the moments and the memories that you can give them whilst you're in there. And I just think, how you can't think of it all. It deserves that. Especially that night, it deserves it all. And I just think my attention to detail is, and the feeling, and then the fight. I wouldn't go in there and just try and point score on this. You'd be fucking mad. Do you know what I mean? Like, people are paying X, Y, and Z, and to be on that card, you bet. Like, I'm really not scared about being open and honest with being nervous about fighting. I'm fucking petrified of it. I'm petrified of not living up to what I want my performance to be. I'm petrified of losing. I carry it with me every day when I'm in camp, and it always makes for me to be ready on the night. That's just how I'm wired, and I've learned to live with that and to feed off that energy. But this one, let me tell you, like, I feel like I'm fighting for a world title, and this is it. Like, every day, it is on me, and it was on me like that in Liverpool. And I know that you perform like, there is no pressure, really. It's you and it's your focus, but it's just how much it means. And when you can transfer nervous energy and you can harness it, that old saying with is it Teddy Atlas, the fire, and Custom Auto with Mike Tyson, you're a firefighter, man. You've got to harness that fire. Too much, it burns the house just enough, keeps it warm, it feeds you, it's all of that. And that's what my nervous disposition is for me. Every day I'll sit there, and when I get home from training, I'm just looking at the wall or watching fights. Fran's like, "Are you okay?" Like, yeah, I'm just in the zone. Like, don't talk to me, love. I'm in the zone. And you know how it can be when you're a fighter. You're like, just leave me the fuck alone, love. I'm just dealing with it here. But some people aren't like that. But to
It's
the little
interesting though.
girls out there, if you feel that, that's cool because it works. If you don't feel that sometimes, I don't know, are you all right? Because are we all right doing what we do? Do you know what I mean?
And yeah, because it is true. It's like some people love having kind of all the distraction. And I think others like to actually hone in on almost like visualizing the entire experience from start to finish, so that you're so prepared going in there that you felt the feeling as close, like, you try and get to that simulation as much as you can. I guess a question back to you, Molly, in terms of like, how do you channel that Irish Scouser energy without letting it override the game plan itself? Like, is it going through the motions in the lead up to, like, while you're in camp, kind of trying to channel into fight night and feeling all those feelings, or at least trying to kind of get as close to it? Or how do you try and work through making sure that you can still stick to that game plan while feeding the energy into your performance?
I've been lucky enough to fight in Boston, in the garden there. I fought at MSG. We've done Vegas. I've done Liverpool. I've done the North up in Belfast in the stadium. I know what a fight night feels like. And I was saying to Fran, she's like, these camps are hard. And I said, I fight with myself every fucking day so that I'm free on that night. And it's a real spiritual thing for me. When I make that ring walk and when I go through them ropes, it gets me really emotional because I feel like everything in my life is just gone and I can just be me at my truest form, in my truest expression. And both sides of my family is Irish and both grandparents are. And we was taught so much, like our dignity, our moral standards, what's right and what's wrong, how you treat your family, like it's family over everything. We are a clan, this is us. How much it means, do you know how much my last name means to me? I've got our family shield on my leg, it's on the back of me fight kit. Like Liverpool's mini island, and we are like a little, not a byproduct, but we're so intertwined and our culture's exactly the same. And it's like, there won't be no pressure on that night, but I have to take myself there every fucking day and take myself to a place I know my opponent won't be able to touch. So on that fight night, the performance, there will be no excuse here, like, because they won't, because they can't be, because I've got family coming from Dingle, from Bray, I've got family coming from the north. We're popping out of everywhere to come for this moment, and then on the Sunday I'm going to stay in Bray, and I'm all like me and my family and that are going to have a little reunion there. It's a homecoming again. And you know, when I come back to Ireland and to Dublin, I'm treated with this level of love. It's just, you know what the Irish are like. If anyone's a bit Irish, then you're claimed, aren't you? And I think on a political standpoint, I stand for everything that the Republic stands for, and I think that in interviews I'm not shy about speaking about my beliefs either, which gets me into trouble this side. But I am who I am, and I believe in what I believe in, and I stand. I'm not trying to upset anyone, but don't ask me opinion and then hate me for my answer.
But I mean, September, Croke Park is just going to be truly epic. This is just as important of a moment for you as it is what you're going to bring to that fight and to the Irish people. Molly's Tavern, right? You've got your Molly's Tavern at home. Was it a friend who built kind of the pub? Yes, I want to see it.
Yeah, so it was my cousin. I said I want an Irish shebeen, but I've just changed it, so my telly's here and my little couch is there because I've just been watching fights. But let's spin you round. Oh shit, I've turned it off. Hang on. Tell me you're a millennial without telling me you're a millennial. How to spin it? I don't know, but here is the famous spin and elbow ring card from the round 3 that I did it. A piece of the canvas. Here is when I won a world title and the Fighting Pride of Liverpool. Up here is loads of Guinness stuff. Over here we've got a real Guinness clock, an original.
Love it.
This is the custom built bar. Too many parties happened in here, that's why I had to go sober. More Guinness clocks. I kept, there's my robe from the last fight. More alcohol. Here's my deck. Here's all my records and my speakers. And his last orders.
Amazing.
Get out of my pub. So yeah, this is like,
that's not a 12.
No, this is where I hide from the world, to be honest. But I've got like everywhere in here. It's got all like little McCann stuff. Do you know? And every time I come over to Ireland, when I'm in the airport, I'm a proper one of them tourists who just bums Guinness. And I like buy anything from the Guinness shop. Do you know what I mean? Eat like even like shit. Like it's a lovely day to have a Guinness. And Sarah, I always do that face. Can you see that face?
Yeah.
I'm the Guinness man. But yeah. It's only Guinness Zero now.
Yeah, it's not that bad though, because I went sober. Myself and my dad's tradition is always a pint of Guinness, but I will have the Guinness Zero now, and it's okay. It's a bit on the watery side, but it does the job.
Yeah, I was at a wedding on Friday, and everyone was drinking, and my weight is so low. I went, go on, let me try a Guinness Zero, because I'm like 8 months sober now. And I tried one sip and I thought, yeah, it tastes the same, but I'm not fucking doing it. Because I just thought it's not even worth it if it's not the real thing. Do you know what I mean? Do you know when you're in fight camp and you're just dying for some sugar and you have some, like a protein bar and it just tastes like ass and you're just like, oh, I'd just rather go without. I'll go and have fruit instead. Do you know what I mean?
No, totally. And like, when you get a taste of it, that's it. It's like, it's a slippery slope. And so you might as well just go completely cold turkey and just avoid it.
Just behind us in that bar, I had Guinness on draft. So when the parties were on in here, it was curtains, like it was curtains. Them doors open and the garden fills up, and everyone, when you hear the music on, everyone comes to ours. So yeah, we had to knock it in the head, in the head.
Fair. Well, then what's your go-to? Because you're obviously the vinyls and all of that. Do you like to sit, like kick back and listen to some vinyls, or is it all like more dance rave music that you still go to?
So I DJ disco and house, and my music selection is soul and funk and like Motown. And there's like,
Love it.
don't get me wrong, I've got a bit of Cranberries, Kingfisher, and Amble in there on the vinyl. But on Tuesdays in the boxing gym, we play trad or rebel tunes. When we're in boxing, we get the tunes, like on a Tuesday, it's me and Danny, and we have a 1-to-1, and then we'll put them songs on because it's only me and him in there. There's no kids, or it can't offend anyone. But he always goes, like, get that ancestor strength going. But do you know,
good.
I'm not sure if you know who Shauna Bannon is, but she's in the UFC. She's from Tale.
Okay.
She's one of my best friends. But like when it was fight week and we'd be in the UFC, we just put Irish tunes on, and it just takes you to that like next level where you just you know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, even when we're going to like a weigh-in or on the way to a fight, and they'll play like Irish trad music for me, and I'd be fucking welling up. Like you just like you're about to go to war, you know? Just
Yeah, that's honestly, yeah. Honestly, my walkout song is a real traditional Irish song. I don't won't get everyone's gonna sing it. I think loads of people might cry in that, to be honest. I've had them big up tempo ones, but Croke Park deserves that little everyone singing it acoustic, just a man and a microphone, and watch them go. So I'll be trying not to fucking cry on my way in. I'll be like that.
Years, yeah. No, it's going to be epic. When the gloves are all hung up and you say, we did it, lad. What does a fulfilled Molly McCann look like beyond boxing? What are you really building towards?
Being a mum, having a stable home life. And I'm from a place called Norris, and I've just been put on the board by the council to help like the regeneration of this area. So St. Teresa's is no more, and I want to open a boxing gym called the Holy Trinity, and I want it to be here. So that's the legacy would be to be able to walk outside my door one road away and help change the kids in this community. That's like, I think you fix home before you go out. If I manage to, I think that's all I'm really bothered about. Obviously, punditry may come, being an analyst may come. Could end up still coaching. Like, I love to coach, and I know I've got a business mind enough to manage and to do it all. But I think I've given my whole life now to like the top ends of the sport. I feel like I should come back to the grassroots and help where I'm from.
That's going to be magical, Molly. It's like, seriously, it's going to be amazing. My signature closer, because obviously the podcast is called Between the Rounds. What's the absolute best piece of coaching feedback you've ever received in that single minute between rounds? And if you can, so it can be either during a fight or during sparring or during training. But what was that absolute best piece of coaching feedback you've ever been given?
Endless possibilities. With every shot you've got, you should have endless possibilities of it. I didn't use a jab in boxing. In MMA, I would just pour out, and it took me 3 fights to learn to jab correctly and maneuver the jab. And he said, that will give you endless possibilities. What can you do from there? Jab, pivot, go again. Or like, there's nothing that you can't do in that. Do you know what I mean? But when it's not coaching and it was just life, my mum said to me, fear or faith. You can't live in both. You can't have faith with fear, and you can't live in fear and have faith. You have one or the other. When anyone's sitting there and life's going shit, or you're 6 round downs and you've got 2 left, you can't live in that fear of what if it doesn't happen. You've got to have faith that it will, and keep building on it and building on it, and that's it.
That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's crazy. Yeah, I've gone through a similar thing because too often we make decisions out of fear, or we don't make decisions because we fear something. So I love that.
Of course. Yeah. And it's so relevant to life and to fighting. Like when you're on the ends and you're fighting someone, every shot's a fucking stinger, and it's not going your way, and your chin's down and you're coming back to the corner and you're defeated and deflated. Why can't you shake her off and go and have faith that you move a different way again, and you use your endless possibilities to get round there and to keep on trying and to keep on going. Do you know what I mean?
And the
Must
jab will
be
take you around the
lovely. I
world.
like
Don't ever forget.
that. Yeah, a jab will take you around the world, not half. And just so you know, this is just Coke Zero. If anyone's thinking, is she drinking Monster or an energy drink? It's probably just as bad, but I need something at the night
No,
time. And
no. Exactly.
it's
And if
only
that's
two
your little
calories.
fix, would you stop? Yeah. Yeah, go on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Molly,
Right.
what an incredible conversation with Molly. My gosh, I will cherish this moment for a very long time. The authenticity and the love she has for this sport is felt through everything she does. I'm so excited for Croke Park in September. And even more than that, what she's going to do for this sport when she's done competing too. Huge thanks to Molly for spending a Tuesday evening with us on Between the Rounds. If you love this episode, do us a quick favor, hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, keep your hands up, trust your camp, and stay sharp. I'm your host, Sarah Cunningham, and we'll see you next time on Between the Rounds.